What up, what up, what up? It's a Fair Enough podcast. I forgot that our countdown starts at 5 and not 3, so that really threw me off. Okay. I got the boys, Micah and Hayden. We're doing the continuation of the running backs. We made it to 16 from the last one. We're going to do 15 through 1. Probably makes sense to listen to that one first and then this one. But if you want to just start at 15 and then go to listen to 30 through 16, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's really dumb, but I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Yeah, if you want to be a psycho, go ahead.
Listen to both.
Listen
At
to
the same
them
time.
both at the same time on the dual monitors. I love it.
Yes.
All right. And just keep doing that, keep doing that, keep doing that. Views are going to go way up. All right. At number 15, we got James Cook. I've got him at 22. Micah's got him at 21. Hayden, you got him at 8. Me and Micah are way low compared to consensus. Hayden, you're way high compared to consensus. It's kind of interesting. We didn't have a middle on this one. A lot of them where we've been kind of off. There's been at least a little bit of a middle ground. I think I know why me and Mike are kind of on the same page here. We've had a few conversations about this when we're talking about rookie drafts. The Bills have tried to replace James Cook at every turn. And this is my fear about James Cook, is every time there's a running back on the free agent market, every time something comes up like that, the Bills are one of the number one suitors. I just don't think there's a lot of faith in James Cook being the workhorse back. James Cook is super good at what he does, which is being a receiving back, coming out of the backfield, making plays. He's extremely athletic. I just worry that at some point the Bills are going to find a guy to take away the touches, and I'm also concerned that that guy is Ray Davis. So for me, I'm probably too low on James Cook here when we talk about a lot of the other guys that we talk about not having established roles, but I just can't see the ceiling here at all. And if Ray Davis is any good, and I think Ray Davis is good.
Go ahead, Micah. Let me know why I'm wrong.
Oh, I was mostly agreeing with Luke. I mean, like he said, we've had this conversation a couple times that it feels like they're always trying to replace him. And this year, I just don't know what that offense is going to be. They may actually rely on him a little bit more. But if, like Luke said, if Ray Davis is any good, he may take the role that's going to be needed there in that backfield. But I just don't know what their offense is going to look like. And that scares me a lot. Like, I just don't know what receivers they're going to come out with, who's going to do what. And that offense just scares me right now. I mean, I know you still got Josh Allen, but I just don't know what that offense is going to look like whatsoever this year.
Yeah, and then I have him at 8, and I'm the sole reason why he's in the top 15 as far as our ranking. But I just think he's going to have a really good year. I think the Bills are still going to be really good. I don't really get it where people think, and I'm not saying you guys say they're going to fall off, but I know a lot of people are just like, oh, they're not going to be good. I don't really get it. Josh Allen's still top 3 QB easily, and I just think they've got plenty of weapons on that offense to still be good. They lost Stephon Diggs, but I am probably one of the few on the side where I think that actually doesn't hurt them or even maybe helps, just because I think he was the guy who really wanted the ball. I think James Cook is a great pass catcher out of the backfield too. So as far as fantasy goes, I think he's going to rack up points this year. I do agree with you guys. They try to replace him all the time, but so far they haven't. So I'm going to bank on the side that they're going to continue to not be. And then the fact that they need more production out of other guys this year with Diggs gone, I think he might take even just a little bit more of a step. And then maybe they'll finally be like, okay, this guy is clearly our number one guy. Maybe we need a bigger back to spell him, and maybe that's Ray Davis. But I don't think he's going to take enough carries away from him to really be much of value at all this year. So I think James Cook's going to have a really good year. It'll be future-wise what happens, but I think he's going to be good enough. You're going to want him for a couple of years.
And everything you just said, I see that side of the argument as well. And I think my point would be you're going to be right or we're going to be right. James Cook is not going to be the running back 15 to 16 next year. It's either going to be like, all right, like James Cook's the guy. We're tired of trying to have this debate. This is another year we brought in a guy. He's still dominated. Or it's going to be like James Cook isn't the guy. So I can totally see your scenario playing out. I like the Bills as well as a team. I just don't like James Cook. So
Yeah, I agree. He
yeah,
either moves
I
up to
agreed with your
10
Stephon
or
Diggs
he
point.
falls to 25.
Yeah,
So
100%. So, all right. We actually had completely opposite rankings and still somehow saw eye to eye on part of it. That doesn't make sense. That's bad podcasting, guys. Not. I
yeah, we're
actually
supposed to hate
hate
each
everything
other.
you said, Hayden, and your face. Okay, number 14, Isaiah Pacheco. I had him at 16. Mike had him at 12. Hayden had him at 13. Move your mic back.
No, I forgot to unmute it. I tried to say something in there, but I forgot to unmute it. But it's irrelevant.
Move it behind your computer.
You can see
Or
it?
on the other side of your computer.
No, it's just echoing.
I can hear my voice again.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
My
fine.
bad. My bad.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nah, you Gucci gang. I figured out what happened last time when I saw you fix it. So I was just
It wouldn't be a podcast episode without a little bit of IT issues.
Yeah, it's always
like
me.
the IT guy. That's my favorite thing. If nothing else comes of that podcast, out of this podcast ever, that song will be my.
I'm gonna say, hopefully, some that are watching this will remember what you're talking about. So,
yeah. Well, I think like half the people don't even understand what you're saying in the video. So,
yeah.
now they can go back and appreciate it for all of its glory.
Fair.
All right, Isaiah Pacheco, 14 for the group. I'm the lowest at 16. I just think that the passing offense is going to come back. He's still going to be the guy. He's still going to be good for fantasy. I just don't think he has the same ceiling that he's had the last couple of years because Mahomes got the weapons back, and Andy Reid at heart wants to throw the ball every single play, and that's just going to take away from his ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with 13. I think he's going to be really good still. I mean, I think they're still going to run the ball enough, and his yards per carry is good enough that I think he'll still put up good numbers. I think he'll have a few goal line opportunities to get some of those touchdowns that'll help him out. And then, honestly, I thought he got a lot better in these last 2 years at pass catching. I know they didn't always use him a lot, but I thought he's gotten better, and he's shown that he can actually be that 3-down back. I know they'll still spell him just because they run a committee still. You know, Clyde will get some carries, and some other guys will still get some touches, but I think he's shown that he can catch better. And Andy Reid's screen game, man, it's always good for a few TDs a year, and it's always good for some long TDs. So I think he will end up being a good running back, and I think just the way that they like him, I think he's going to be around for a few years, and he's cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I like him so much is I just think the Chiefs are going to be in the lead enough this year that he's going to get enough touches to really have some explosive plays at times, and in that screen game and all sorts of stuff. But then just down the stretch, just giving him the ball, letting him run hard like he does. I think he'll get a lot more touches later in the game this year.
And I think my thought process was I have Najee, Ramondre, and Rashad right ahead of him. If you have Pacheco as your running back 2, I feel the most comfortable that I can feel. I think those 3 guys that I have right ahead of him, I could see as RB1s. And Pacheco was the best RB2 at his ceiling for me. So that was kind of just where I came in on that. Speaking of that, at number 13 as a group, we had Rashad White. Like I said, I had him at 15. Micah, you had him at 11. And Hayden, you had him at 12.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Micah.
Micah, go ahead.
So I just like him. I like what he does. He seems to be consistent every year. He catches the ball well. And with Baker tends to dump it off a little bit. And so he tends to get a decent amount of catches and still runs the ball fairly well. And he's just a young guy that I think is just going to keep improving each year. And what is he? He's only like 22, 23, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah, he's
23,
young.
24 probably. Yeah.
25, I guess. But still, just a younger guy and got quite a few years left. And I think he's going to be right around every year for the next 2, 3 years. I think he's going to be right around low tier RB1, high tier RB2. And so I just think he's going to be a pretty consistent guy for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. My thing was the inefficiency numbers just kept him away from being an RB1 in my book in the running game. The way he runs the ball, I feel like they'll try to replace him in some capacity, not completely, obviously. He's too good and explosive in the passing game, but I feel like they'll continue to try to explore getting carries elsewhere. And so they just drafted Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving was another weird fit because he is Rashad White to me, but kind of the Blake Corum, Kyron Williams situation. I just, like I said, we're splitting hairs. All of these guys are really good at this point. I just took the inefficiency to be, I'm going to put you at 15 instead of 12.
Yeah. I see where that inefficiency kind of scares you a little bit. It scared me just a little bit, but I um, looked back and I saw that they drafted a center with their first pick this year. So I think they're trying to bolster that line a little bit. They also took a guard later in the draft. And I think honestly where a lot of his inefficiency came is he just doesn't run very well between the tackles, and they try to run him between the tackles, and he just doesn't get a lot. It hurts his averages. I think maybe with those draft picks, it'll help that a little bit. If he can just run with a better yard per carry, I think he'll be. I think he would jump up way high because of his usage. I mean, they used him a lot. I mean, he got a lot of carries, and he's
Yep.
still got a lot of activity in the pass game. Just like you, I mean, it doesn't add up a whole lot, even if he gets 20 some carries, if he's only getting like 3 yards a carry. I mean, it just doesn't add up. But if he can boost that up a little bit, I think he'll be pretty good. So,
And I do think too the security was a little bit of an issue with the new OC, and Todd Bowles is kind of like really hands off on the offense. It's always been Dave Canalis's, and he just kind of does his own thing. Um, like I said, I don't see Rashad White getting replaced quickly, but just enough to bump him down a couple spots as well in that department. All right, number 12. We've got the highest ranked rookie for us as a group. We got Jonathan Brooks. I have him exactly at 12. Micah has him at 8. And Hayden has him at 16. So I'm the middleman again. Hands off. Somebody else go.
Your turn, Hayden.
I'll go. I wasn't very high on, I guess, as high as some of these other guys that we just went over. Coming off of that injury is the main reason, I guess, that kind of scares me. And then the fact that he went to Carolina, don't love that. But I mean, he's probably going to get the opportunity once he gets healthy. I mean, I guess it just depends on how well Chuba is running the ball, but he hasn't shown that he can be that stud yet. Chuba Hubbard hasn't. So I think Jonathan Brooks is going to get the opportunity when he gets in there. But what's their offense going to look like? I mean, is it going to be doing much this year? I don't have them winning many games, and I think they're going to be struggling just as much as they were last year offensively. And we'll see how he looks off that injury too. I do like him for the fact that he's a young guy, he's a rookie, he's got a lot of potential, but where he went and that injury scares me.
Yeah, I'm the opposite of you on my rankings. I've got him at 8. So I just think once he gets back and gets healthy, I just think he's going to be their guy in that backfield. And if Bryce Young is as bad as he was last year, I think they're just going to have to go to him a lot. But I think Bryce Young is going to take a step forward, and he's going to come in there and kind of take a little pressure off Bryce Young this year because I think he's going to be really good. And I think their offense takes a step forward this year. It may take them a while, but I think he'll be a big part of that offense taking a step forward.
Yeah, Jonathan Brooks was one of the most complicated analysis for me because I have I got Miles Sanders last year, so I was like, okay, I'm going to avoid that. And then you have the ACL, so I'm like, I'm going to avoid that. But he comes into zero competition. Like you said, Chuba Hubbard's the best running back on the roster. Okay, so now he's really high again. And then my big thing, my selling point was kind of like funny because we just talked about Rashad White, but Dave Canales coming in likes to throw the ball to the running back a lot, likes to use screens, likes to get creative ways to get the running back the ball. So at his age, and he is so talented, I just put him at 12 because I'm like, hey, I could see this guy being a running back one pretty quickly. I like the talent, don't love the landing spot, but maybe the landing spot gets better with a new offensive coordinator. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put the talent there at number 12 and roll with it. You got to kind of close your eyes and squint because it's going to be scary at the beginning. One thing I will say is like don't get discouraged if it starts off really slow. It's probably going to.
Yeah.
All right. At number 11, we had Devon Achan. And so I kind of thought that this was one that we were going to differ on a little bit more. He's kind of a polarizing topic for the most part, but I had him at 11. Micah had him at 13. Hayden, you had him at 11. I really thought I was going to be the lowest based on the consensus rankings. For me, there's just so much competition. Like that's my biggest concern with Devon Achan. You brought in Jalen Wright, who, in my opinion, is a better running back, pure running back than Devon Achan, and Raheem Mostert is also a better running back than Achan. Like that's kind of already proven at this point. So in my eyes, he's the third best pure runner on the field. The problem is he can score a 90-yard touchdown anytime he touches the ball. So for fantasy, like that's 15 points, one touch. That's all he needs. So the workload I don't think is going to be there, but the explosiveness is off the charts. And if you are playing in a league with like kick returns and kick return yards, he's probably in the top 5 on this stat of this ranking because he's going to. That I feel like he's going to thrive in that area.
Yeah, my big thing is I just don't know where they're gonna what they're gonna do with him. I mean, he's explosive, and that's why I've got him as high as I do. But I just don't know. There's so much competition. They're gonna have so much just going on in that backfield, and then I mean, they've been talking about lining him up outside a little bit more, and I mean, but then they've got Hill and Waddle out there. I mean, he's just got so much to work. They've got so much to work with in that offense, and like there's so many places to go. It's hard to say adding another running back that he's not going to dip a little bit from last year. I think he gets a few more touches just because he was banged up a bit last year, but I just don't know where he's going to be at in consistency wise. But those big plays are just going to be there, and that you just when you play him, you just got to hope for those big plays.
Yeah. So I had the same position as Luke. I had him at 11. I just think that in that offense, the way that Miami plays every year, they're always going to play really well. They're going to probably beat some teams down. So he's going to get plenty of opportunities in those games. And like Luke said, he's able to break it at any moment. I also think that with a guy like that type of speed, um, they just can't keep him off the field. Like, I mean, like they're going to want to use him in whatever possible scenario they can. It may not always be running the ball. I mean, he's just got when you got speed like that, you just got to be able to get him out there and get him in open space. And I think he's kind of like Keaton Mitchell, and where he's just game breaking speed. And I think that's just such a difference maker. The only difference is why I had Keaton Mitchell lower is because they brought in the guy who's literally been dominating the league at running back position for like the last 8 years in Derrick Henry. So I don't think Miami has a guy like that. I know Raheem Mostert had a good year last year, but if as far as fantasy goes, I think he only had that because I think he had like 10 to 15 touchdowns in that range, and I don't see that happening again. Um, Sometimes it just kind of flip flops. He gets the touchdowns, and other people will get them, and I think it'll kind of even out.
Yeah, I mean, Mostert did still run for 1,000 yards. The reason he was like top of the charts fantasy was touchdowns because he didn't have receptions hardly at all. mean, he had a few, but not really. Um, my thing with HN is like 10 touches a game is probably what he's looking at. And there is no one that I could think of that would be anywhere near the top 10 with 10 touches a game, in my opinion. That is why he's just a game breaker. The thing that I would push back on the game breaking speed is I think in a different offense, yeah, you do have to really force feed him because he's that fast. But the Dolphins have 3 to 4 guys that are that fast. They have Tyreek, who's the fastest man that I've ever seen play football and be good at it. You have Waddle, who's fast. Jalen Wright, who's super fast. Raheem Mostert, who's super fast. So everyone that's touching the ball in that offense, outside of like Braxton Berrios, is super fast. And so that's kind of a different scenario because if he was like on the Chiefs, like, yeah, you'd have to get him 15 touches a game because he's by far the most explosive person. But in the Dolphins offense, he's second or third, probably second, but debatable on that third spot.
Yeah, the other thing I could see is Raheem Mostert has also had some injury problems in his career. And I mean, so far he would be the only person that isn't going to stay in front of him. I don't see Jeff Wilson jumping
Yeah.
him. So if Raheem Mostert got hurt, I think Devin Achane would have a lot of touches.
Well, see, that's where yeah, we're going to talk about HN for longer than I expected, but that's where I think Jalen Wright would get the touches because he's just bigger. Like, I just don't think HN's frame can hold up on the touches. He's under 200 pounds. That's usually like a break line for like how many touches you can have in a game. So I think they're going to manage him that way intentionally to keep him on those 10 explosive touches as opposed to overwork him and get him injured and things like that.
I mean, he wasn't getting that many touches last year, and A Chain was getting hurt. Like, he what he had did he have two small injuries last year, and I mean he wasn't getting a whole lot of touches. So um, that's
He had 2 injuries mid-season. He had 2 before the season started as well. So um, just already kind of starting that track record. But what's funny is we're talking about him like he's bad because we're below consensus, but we still have him at 11. So like we obviously think he's really good.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I mean, off of that low capacity of touches, he just went off. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's where it is. I mean,
He did have like 400 yards in that one game.
that's true.
Like I forget who they were
That was-
playing. I think it was that team with the ugly horse faces, but something like that.
Don't hurt
There you
Grant's
go, Kate.
feelings.
Oh no, it's all directed at Kate. All right. Speaking of off consensus, but in the complete opposite direction, we got Josh Jacobs here at 10. I got him 9. Micah, you have him at 14. Hayden, you have him at 10. Consensus has him at 17. And, I kind of understand it from a dynasty perspective. Not to like mix in 2 different things here, but best ball, this dude's way too low. Just mark that. Josh Jacobs should go higher in every single draft. But for my thoughts here, I think this has to be a Marshawn Lloyd dip for Dynasty. A lot of people really liked him coming in. He's very good. I really like Marshawn Lloyd. The Packers did not sign Jacobs to this contract to play Marshawn Lloyd this year. Josh Jacobs has been one of the best running backs in football. Honestly, when healthy, there's not really any debating it the last couple of years. And their offense is so open, so explosive. It's off of play action. So having your best running back in the game as much as you can is important because Josh Jacobs is going to attract the attention of a defense a lot more than Marshawn Lloyd at this point in their careers. So I just think that Jacobs is in for a huge role. He's on a great offense, on a good team, and he's really good. Like, I don't know what more you could ask from a dynasty running back. And he's not old. Like, he's not young, but he's also not old. I want to say that I'm going to not guess ages off the
I
top
think he's
of my head.
like
I'll look it up.
27.
I'll go look. You keep talking. I think he's 27, but
Well, that was the end of my thing. That's why I was going to go look. But
okay.
he's
But
just good. He's just
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, he is. I had him at 10. I agreed with you on many of your points. I mean, they don't sign him to a contract like that if they're not planning on playing him for at least the next 2 years and a lot in the next 2 years. I do like Lloyd, but I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of touches. He might be able to spell him a little bit, but it's not going to matter as far as fantasy goes. I just think Josh Jacobs is still as good as that year that he had prior to last year. last year I think that offense is just struggling. I mean, they struggled to score. Even in the games that they won, they couldn't score. Referencing the game that they beat the Chiefs, but I think Josh Jacobs is going to be really good. He was kind of for me. I don't know. I kind of compared him to as far as landing spots. He's kind of like Joe Mixon. He went to a really great offense, but the reason that I have way more upside with Josh Jacobs is they signed him to a really big contract, and he's a little bit younger and has still produced pretty good numbers.
Yeah. So he's 26. I found
Yeah,
that.
he's 26 and a half, if that helps at
So
all.
he's even younger than I thought.
My bad. Go ahead, Micah.
But I just looked on Keep Trade Cut because that's what we were going off, and they had like months in there too, so it'd be a little closer. But yeah, I like Jacobs this year. I only have him at 14 though, just because he's only 26, but I mean he's still getting a little older. He's had a lot of wear on him. He's been the workhorse wherever he's went, and I think he'll be the workhorse for the majority of his contract here. Though I think he's still going to have 3 good years left in him, but he is getting a little older, and with those guys, it's a little more risky um, just because of their age. Him and Barkley are the same age though, and I do have Barkley a little higher, but I just think there's a difference there. I'll talk about when I get to Barkley, but I think he'll have a really good year, especially in that offense. I just think they're going to have so many weapons, and he's going to draw a lot of they can't really focus in on him. And I mean, he last year was at the Raiders, and they didn't have a lot to draw away from him, and he still put up a pretty solid year. And so I just think he'll be explosive for at least 2 more years, but just that age kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to say is last year you're looking at his yards per carry stuff, which is a lot of what the knock he gets is though he was so inefficient last year. In most of the games before, first of all, their quarterbacks were Jimmy G, Brian Hoyer, and Aiden O'Connell. Tell me what the defense is keying on in those games. But even before you switched from Jimmy G to the other two, he was averaging about probably 4 a carry if you go out for all the games. So just to say, like, you're averaging 4 yards a carry with Jimmy G as your QB, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's
and
not
then when
bad.
you drop to Aiden O'Connell, he didn't have any games above 3, and that really dipped his yards per carry. So even the threat of Jimmy G was enough to open it up a little bit enough for him, as opposed to 2 really bad quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So, all right, at number 9, here we have Kenneth Walker. So we're a little bit higher than the consensus as well. I have him at 8. Mike has him at 7. Hayden has him at 15. So I'm the middle. Somebody else go ahead.
I'll start out with the bad. I have it at 15. I haven't really been that high on Kenneth Walker. I think they kind of like to split the carries too much for my liking with Zach Charbonnet. I also think that both of those guys basically just rotate injuries. It's like 1 week this guy's hurt, the other weeks this guy's hurt. I know he doesn't miss significant time, but I just don't like how he gets hurt all the time because I think that's going to lead to an eventual season-ending injury. I also don't like where he's at running the ball wise. I think they hit their peak offensively the year before last with Geno at quarterback, and I just don't think he's going to produce a whole lot more. I could see him in 2 years just being a backup to a really good running back and not getting very many carries, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of the opposite. I think he's going to be their main guy for the next couple of years. I mean, he missed 3 games, 2 and got hurt early in 1 game. and still was a top 20 running back, missing a couple games. Um, and I mean, yeah, he's had small injuries, but he's never had anything. I feel like it's always something different. It's never one thing that keeps him down. And so I feel like he's just young enough and just solid enough that you got to have him up there because when he plays, he's pretty explosive. Um, and he can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield. But I was trying to look up this. I had a stat set on him and I moved it, and now I can't remember what it was, but I can't bring it back up in my head. But I just think he's young enough. You got to have him up there, and he's been their main back, and I think he's going to continue to be their main back there.
Yeah, obviously I agree with Micah. I have him one spot lower. I think I have him at 8. Micah has him at 7. For me, age is a huge part of this for sure. And the new offense that they brought in with Ryan Grubb from Washington is super inside zone. Uh, it features a lot of inside zone. For me, that leads a lot more towards Walker's skills than Charbonnet's. So I think you'll see that split go down a little bit more. And the explosiveness of Walker is what I think really will keep him on the field, especially with Grubb coming from a college offense where you have a lot of explosive plays and kind of seeking that out. He definitely has the speed and size to break more things than Charbonnet has. So it'll be interesting to see because if Charbonnet really takes off, then yeah, Walker is going to take a lesser role. But in my opinion, I think you'll just see Walker continue to improve. The biggest issue I have with Kenneth Walker, because I probably would have had him a little higher, which sounds a little crazy, but is Geno Smith being his quarterback. And I don't know how good Seattle's offense is going to be able to be ran with, poor QB play. But for me, I'll take the talent, I'll take the explosiveness, and just hope that they can kind of put it all together as an offense.
Yeah, I can see that.
No, you say I hate you. You're wrong.
Hey,
All
I
right,
still have him at running back 2 at 15, so it's not like I have him as a bench player.
Hayden says, cut Kenneth Walker today if you have him on your roster.
No.
All right, at number 8, we got Kyron Williams. Me and Micah both have him at 10. Hayden has him at 5. So in our last episode, we kind of touched on this a little bit. For us, it's just kind of a confusion thing with the draft picks and the moves, or for me, I guess I should say. But I couldn't keep him out of the top 10 because he's shown how good he is, and Sean McVay has shown how much he loves him. So, like I said, there's just a little confusion with Blake Corum. I think that if Kyron's healthy and good to go, this is probably too low.
Yeah, and I have him at 5, significantly higher from the other two, but I just think he's been really good for them. He fits in that offense really well. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to get used quite a bit, and he's going to be very productive with Sean McVay. Sean McVay is very creative. He gives him a lot of carries, and he's also a pretty good pass catcher. I just, like we were all confused because Blake Corum's basically the same type of guy. I mean, I don't know if it was maybe they just wanted a guy who, if Kyron can't go that game, he can plug him in and do the same exact things so that Sean wouldn't have to change things. So I could see that, but I don't really see Blake Corum being a guy who, like, I guess is going to take carries away from him if Kyron's healthy.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of differ. I think he's going to take a little bit, but more of just like, okay, take a drive off, and just more of prevention for Kyron to just because I feel like they're a lot of the similar, like you were saying, and I just think they noticed because Kyron last year towards the end of the year just had so many games where he just seemed like he was slowing down, seemed like the year had gotten to him. And I think they just wanted a guy that is just going to take a little bit of pressure off. But I don't think it's going to hurt his draft stock. I think it's going to keep him healthier longer throughout this year. But
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
I think
think
he could take a
my
few
push.
snaps, but I don't think he's taking a drive.
Yeah, I think my pushback would be towards Hayden's side, but also not fully in agreeing with Micah because I don't think that's how he's going to be used. I agree with Hayden's overall assumption, but with Micah or with Hayden's point, no one saw Kyron Williams taking the job from Cam Akers at the time, and Sean McVay is weird with running backs, and that's the only like I said, the confusion part is what keeps him lower for me because if I knew Sean McVay was just going to be, I'm going to play Kyron Williams as long as he's healthy, Hayden's spot is right. So who knows? Not me. Sean McVay won't even tell us who plays like the day before the game. So uh, I don't like trusting that guy. That's probably part of it for a
I mean,
fantasy perspective.
we did all think Cam Akers was the guy last year to start the year, and
That's because that's what he told us. Don't listen to Sean McVay.
well,
He's
that's
just
what he's
trying to
telling
throw
us
us
this
off.
year.
That's true. He's actually going to play some guy that we've never heard of at all. Okay. At number 7, we got Saquon Barkley. I had him at 7. Micah, you had him at 9. Hayden, you had him at 7. So, Micah, you had some story to tell us about why he was higher, and then you're lower than both of us. But just tell your
Uh,
story about Josh Jacobs specifically.
I just think he's going to get a lot more touchdowns this year than Josh Jacobs. I think the Eagles' line is a lot better, and he's just going to get a lot of opportunities probably between the 2 and the 10-yard line for carries. Once they're on the 1, maybe not so much. Um, but I think he's just going to get more touchdowns, and that's why I have him a little higher than Josh Jacobs, even though they're about the same age. Is I think his production is just going to be a little bit better the next 2 years, but not by much. But just the touchdowns, I think he's just going to have a lot more touchdowns than Jacobs in a way. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. Obviously, I also have Saquon higher. Um, my thing for Saquon at 7, as opposed to some of these other guys here that were just below him, is just the offense. I think is going to be super reliant on him, whereas I think the other guys are just good in their offense. I think this is where you kind of start to talk about difference makers on their team. And Saquon is a stud. He does everything you want in a running back. He's great between the tackles. He's great in the passing game. He can score touchdowns because he's also a big guy. So you don't have to spell him in any one of those areas. But for me, the reason he's just a little bit lower is Jalen Hurts stealing touchdowns. Like he would be probably in that top 5, but I don't like having a running quarterback with your um, with your running back.
Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of those points. I think he's going to be pretty solid. I mean, he was really solid when he was with the Giants, and he got a lot of usage. I honestly think, he'll have less usage with the Eagles, but I think in that less usage, lower usage role, I think he'll be more productive in what he gets. I think just because they have so many weapons outside, the wide receivers, and then Jalen can run at any time. I think they'll be able to run with the both of them and just be really productive. It'll just depend on how many touchdowns he gets. I kind of like tend to lean with how Micah thinks. I think he'll get a lot of those touchdowns that Jalen was getting in these last couple of years. With Jason Kelsey leaving, I don't know how the tush push will be, but I do think Saquon will kind of steal some of those, and that's why I have him where he's at. If it wasn't for Jalen, I probably would put him up a little higher, kind of like Luke said.
Yeah, so we all, I mean, these top, I mean, from this, really from 10 on, I would say all these guys are really good. And you're splitting super small hairs to see who you would want um, higher or lower. But all of us kind of on the same page with Barkley of really, really, really good for the next 2 years. And after that, it's just gravy. So next up, we got Travis Etienne at 6. I got him at 5. Mike has him at 6, and Hayden has him at 9. For me, this is just he's super explosive. He's in a good offense. It's probably not a great one, but he's in an offense that is super reliant on him. Like this team has won as Travis Etienne has won the last couple of years. I don't think They didn't bring anybody new in. I don't think Tank Bigsby. No, I'm sure they brought in some, maybe a low draft pick or undrafted free agents, but no one big. Um, I don't think Tank Bigsby is going to be good enough to take enough of the role. I'm sure he'll get a little bit larger role than he got last year, but Travis Etienne can score from anywhere, can catch the ball, is good between the tackles. So for me, at his age, being the difference maker between him and Saquon, I had him at 5.
Yeah, and I had him at 9. I just think at times he's not very efficient. He'll have a lot of carries, but he won't go anywhere. I mean, he'll have 20 for 50 yards. Um, but I do think he gets enough usage in the pass game that he's going to be super viable, easily a top 10 guy because of that. And it'll go as how many touchdowns can he score? I mean, last year it was kind of, like Luke said, if he had a great game, they won. So I think it's kind of like that this year again. Can he get in the end zone? Just as much as he was last year, if not more. I think maybe it might pull back just a little bit, and then it just depends on if he can be a little more consistent with his efficiency.
Yeah. Like Luke said, all these are just kind of splitting hairs, and I mean, they're all great running backs, and so it's just with him, he's just so young and already had good years as a young running back. He's just going to keep improving, and I mean, he's like you said, he catches out of the backfield. He runs well, and he's just all around a solid running back to have. And he's only 22 or so, maybe
He's older
20.
than that.
He's 25. I thought he was younger than that. I'm way off on that one. But
Micah, stop guessing ages.
still, young guy, not and just going to be solid next couple of years, and in a good situation, I think, as well. There in Carolina, no,
Nope,
not
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. I was thinking cat, and just thought the wrong cat. Mascots.
I mean, that's fair, I guess.
I don't know what I was thinking.
They are
Okay.
both in the cat family.
When they have somewhat of the same color scheme, they're both bluish.
I mean, yeah.
It's getting late.
You lost me.
Yeah. Okay, your reasons are getting
Past
worse.
my bedtime. Okay, I'm getting tired.
Okay. At number 5, moving on, please, for the love of everything. We got Jonathan Taylor. So you guys both had him at 5. I had him at 3. I'll give you the really super quick version of why I have him at 3. Trey Sermon, Evan Hull, and Tyler Goodson. Those are the running backs behind Jonathan Taylor. I don't see any one of those people taking any significant amount of carries at all. Zach Moss signed a contract for 2 years for $8 million. He was pretty good for them last year, honestly, in a filler role while Taylor was hurt, and then even being a spellback. So they obviously are planning to use Jonathan Taylor heavily if they didn't feel the need to match that contract. I feel like you have a really good offense coming up with Anthony Richardson. The one thing that does concern me is the same thing that I talked about with Saquon, is Anthony Richardson taking some of those touchdowns. But when we're talking about these guys at the top, for me, Jonathan Taylor's role is just so much more, not role, but like total number of touches is so much more solidified because they have to run the ball to keep that zone option scheme kind of open, those RPOs. You can't just not hand the ball off to run a lot of those things. And then their passing weapons, I mean, Michael Pittman's good, and he's really the only solidified. So I feel like Jonathan Taylor is also going to get a ton of touches in the passing game. So I think for me, when you get a guy at 25 who's already been super elite at the position, I'm just going to take that. And I mean, when we're talking about these top 4 for me, the other reason he beat out number 4 of McCaffrey's age. Like, obviously, McCaffrey's on the older side for dynasties, so I had him at 3.
Go ahead, Micah.
Yeah, I had him down at 5. I mean, the age with him and McCaffrey are right there side by side with me, and the only difference is, uh, I just think McCaffrey's 2 years here are just, like he's just dude's insane. McCaffrey's insane, and I think Jonathan Taylor's going to take a big step up this year. Um, didn't he miss? Did he hold out last year?
He held out and then he got hurt. I don't know. There
Yeah,
were some rumors that he wasn't hurt, but
yeah, but either way, he's going to have a huge year this year. But it's just hard to put him above McCaffrey in a 2 year span, just because McCaffrey's just there's so much he can do. Yeah, he's getting up there in age, and he's at the point within a dynasty you might, if you're not competing, you definitely want to get your money's worth now with McCaffrey. And Jonathan Taylor's one of those that if you think you're going to compete in the next 2 years, you definitely still may keep, just because he's still going to have such a big role in that offense, and he's only 25. But the big difference is I think McCaffrey's next 2 years are just going to be another two big years. Um, so those are the difference there between my four and my five.
Yeah, I'm just gonna piggyback off pretty much what you said. I mean, it's just I couldn't take Christian McCaffrey below him. I mean, off of what he's done and what he continues to do, I mean, he's doing big things at the running back position. I think John Taylor's really great. And like what Luke said, I think the main thing that pushed him to five was his I wasn't gonna put him behind or ahead of Christian McCaffrey, but then also Anthony Richardson I just think hurts his value just a little bit. I still think he's gonna easily crack that top 10 as a running back, but I just think with a running quarterback, kind of like Saquon, you're just not going to get as many opportunities, and then there might be some touchdowns taken away from you that would otherwise go to you.
okay. I have questions, but we'll get to them in a second. You guys can both field the same question at number three. At number four, we have Christian McCaffrey. We all have him number four. Um, for me, it's pretty simple. Yeah, we're playing, 2 to 3 year windows. Um, I just think the amount that Christian McCaffrey has been hurt in his career is the only thing that really kind of kept him away from being higher. And I know he's at four, so it's not like I'm knocking him hugely, but I just think he's super good. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. And I don't know that he can keep up the same usage rate that he's had the last couple of years. Other than that, though, yeah, if you are competing, Christian McCaffrey is the number one running back in any form of fantasy football if you're trying to win now. There's really not a lot to talk about. He's just
Yeah, I mean it's Christian McCaffrey. Everything's been said. Dude's just so good. Like we talked, the age though is the only big concern. He's 28, and I think he's right above 28. Uh, so sorry, I messed with my screen. I'm lost. Okay, yeah, but he's 28, so getting up near 30, and but there's been running backs who's played till 30, and he takes care of his body. Yeah, he does get hurt, but he does all the right things of just prep work on his body and doing everything he can to stay healthy. And so, if anybody can play until 30, even with injury, it's probably him.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the reason I like him at four, I mean, obviously he's clearly just been probably the best running back the last 2 years. But his age, I mean, like Micah said, and then just the amount of usage he's getting is probably the two factors why he didn't get put up higher. It's just how long can he continue to do that? But the reason I did put him higher than Jonathan Taylor is because of his pass catching, honestly. I think that Brock Purdy uses him more of a bailout than Anthony Richardson would use Jonathan Taylor more as a bailout. I think he's going to get more dump offs. He's going to get more opportunity in the pass game.
Yeah, from a check down perspective, 1000%. I just feel like Jonathan Taylor is going to also get those forced touches of we don't have, because the 49ers have Debo, Kittle, Ayuk. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is still going to get his I think that Jonathan Taylor is just going to be force fed on the same level that McCaffrey is. Um, whether that plays out or not, we'll see. But at number 3, we got Jahmyr Gibbs. I have him at 6. Hayden, you have him at 2. Micah, you have him at 3. Um, I guess my question here is then you guys said the thing about Jonathan Taylor and you're playing the 2 to 3 year window. So then how do you, because to me, Taylor and Gibbs were the two that I kind of thought about in that vicinity. And then you're like, okay, you're playing this window. How come Gibbs is above McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor is below McCaffrey?
It's
That is a
because
great question.
you want
Go ahead.
my answer is because I think he's a better pass catching back. I think that matters more in fantasy. I mean, I know Jonathan Taylor's not a bad pass catching back, but I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be able to have those years where he's putting up the all-purpose yards like what Christian McCaffrey is. I think as soon as David Montgomery kind of gets more out of the picture is when Jahmyr Gibbs will take off. Now, that's obviously probably not going to happen this year, but I do think that he was what? Was he a top 5 running back this year, even with Montgomery's usage or with his production? And I don't think
Uh,
Montgomery.
if he wasn't 5, he was very close.
He was at 10.
Okay, but he was at 10, and Montgomery still got 1,000 yards. I don't think Montgomery's going to do that again, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to replace that. And then also, I just think eventually Jahmyr Gibbs is going to become the guy, and he's going to become really, really good. And he's also super young. Like, I mean, like we're talking, there's probably what, a 6-year gap in age there. That's what
Yes,
I'm banking
6
off.
years. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, my big thing is, like he said, he had a running back in front of him. Uh, I don't know if you consider it in front of him, but and he still was a top 10 running back. Um, and he also missed 2 games. Um, so, like, towards the end of the year, he has 2 games not in double digits. I mean, the dude just exploded towards the end of the year, and I just don't see how he doesn't get a bigger role in the next 2 years. And the he's 22. Like, I
yeah.
mean, like, there's the hard part is at like 22, you can gauge your gap a little more. At 25, a 2 year, you're 27, and that, I mean, I know I was getting old at 27. I know I was starting to hit 27. But at 22 to 25, you feel like the same person. I know it's different for NFL players getting beat up and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but as athletes, you kind of feel that at 27 compared to 20, 24, 25. There's a bigger window for those guys who are a lot younger. And that's why I kind of gave him a little higher up there, is just because he is so young. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my pushback wasn't Gibbs over Jonathan Taylor because I
yeah,
totally see
no,
people saying that. It's just like you're giving me McCaffrey's reason as the 2 year window, and then you're like, oh,
yeah,
well, Gibbs. But like I said, I see your rankings. You guys are actually closer to consensus. I think he's at 3 and 4. Yeah, he's at 3 in consensus. So I'm a little bit lower. I like my reasoning is literally just David Montgomery. Like I think he's super good. I just think the team likes to use Montgomery more than I would like my top 3 running back to be sharing carries and touches. He's amazing with what he does with it. I mean, like I've said it 5 times probably, but you're splitting hairs. And for me, I'm just going to go with Jonathan Taylor, ETN, McCaffrey, Brees Hall, and Bijan ahead of him because they're the ones. And there's nobody that's close to them on the roster to compete with touches. So um, at number 2, I don't think it's any surprise here who our top 2 are. I know I kind of just gave it away, but if you were thinking it was going to be anybody else, you probably haven't paid any attention to Dynasty football and you're not going to listen to this podcast this far through. So at number 2, we got Brees Hall. Me and Micah both have him at 2. Hayden has him at 3. I think my thing with Brees Hall is he might be the best pure running back I've ever watched. Watched. Like, not like saying, because I've seen football games before, but I started really watching football, I would say like 5 years ago. And the dude is insanely good at purely running the football. Um, he's fast, he's strong, makes great reads. Last year, he was dominant on a bad offense, like a bad offense. And I think Micah said that they scored 17 touchdowns on offense.
18, and he had 9 of them.
18, and he had 9 of them. So he was their only offensive piece that was able to create. I know they have Garrett Wilson, who's also very, very good, but their quarterbacks were not good enough to use Garrett Wilson the way that he should have been. So if you can thrive in that offense with an improved offensive line, a very much improved quarterback, even if Aaron Rodgers isn't what he used to be, he's still convincingly better than Zach Wilson, and I don't even remember. Trevor Simeon was one of them, and all of the other people they threw out that should not be on NFL rosters. So um, I think it was Tim Boyle is the one that I was thinking of. That might not be right, but for me, Brees Hall is 2, and I had a huge debate, Brees Hall or Bijan at 1 for me, but I have too many stocks of Bijan, so that really took the cake for me on my putting on 1.
Yeah, I mean, I put him at 3. I mean, it's like we keep saying. I mean, we're splitting hairs. I mean, I would take either one of those guys in a freaking heartbeat. But um, I just like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot more. The youth. I mean, I guess one thing is Brees did have a season-ending injury. I haven't seen that out of Jahmyr Gibbs yet. I know he's came back, and I mean, clearly didn't phase him at all. So I mean, I don't know why I would even use that, but I guess it's one thing I could use against him. Um, but I guess another would probably just be that even though they have built that lineup a little bit more, it's not like they built it into this tremendous offensive line that's just going to be pushing people around everywhere. I mean, he's doing this a lot on his own, just off of his own talent and just because he's really freaking good. They got brought in an older offensive lineman. I mean, it'll depend on how long. I mean, can he go very long in the year? Maybe that'll help him. But I mean, just maybe he takes just a slight step back and goes from 2 to 3 for me. So I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know if there's much more to say. I mean, the dude's good, and the team's just going to be better this year. He's not going to have all the attention on him, and they're going to be able to spread it out more. But he's still just dominant, and they're going to get him the ball because, I mean, he made their offense go last year, and they're not going to have as much focus on him because they're going to have to watch Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers being able to throw the ball a little bit more. So he's just going to be another. It's going to be another good year for him.
Yeah, and I think the thing that shocked me too when I was looking stuff up is he's only 23. Like, I thought he was going to be in that 24, 25 range because he's been in the league a couple of years, but he was really young when he came out. So um, just lots of good things to say about these guys that we have ranked number 3, 2, and 1. Like, they're probably going to have pretty high opinions. But at number 1, the consensus one, nobody got crazy here. Bijan Robinson, like I said, we all had him at number 1. Kind of the same talking points you have about Brees Hall is that Bijan was really good last year, showed a lot of flashes, showed a lot of great moments, and then you bring in Kirk Cousins and you bring in an offensive coordinator that will not, for some unknown reason, give carries to Tyler Algier or Cordero Patterson or any other running back that you can think of. So I think this offense is much improved. I think Bijan's going to see a lot of the fruit of that improvement. And I also think that when you go off of Kirk's play action game, like, defenses are just going to be in confusion a lot of the time because that's how the Kirk offense is kind of run.
Yeah, I mean, he was good last year, and he was getting barely 60% of the touches sometimes. Like, and you just you can't see that happening again. Like, I mean, you just got to think he's going to get the ball consistently and just and I mean, I don't know what went on last year. I'm still confused on that. So hopefully we're not just wrong and he's just actually bad and that's why he didn't get the ball. But from what we saw, it's just hard not to think that he's just going to be dominant this year. And so
Yeah, not much to add to it. I mean, just the fact that, like, what was going on with his usage? I mean, it's going to obviously go up. I mean, with the new OC coming from the Rams, I mean, he's kind of learned from McVay, to use the guy. If he's producing, you use him, and he's clearly going to produce. I mean, he produced last year, and there was games where he didn't even hardly play, and then didn't play nearly as much as he should have. So, I mean, he's clearly one of the very best fantasy running backs you could have.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of bad running backs that average 4.6 yards a carry when they're having to split a ton of carries. So I'm not worried that he's bad, Micah. Okay, take that out of your mouth. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that evil on me.
you have so much stock in him, dude.
I do.
You're like Cam with Almond Raw.
It would be kind of funny if he fell off then, since you have a lot of stock in him.
You shut your mouth.
I don't have any, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's because we're in the same leagues, Micah. I can't have him in that many leagues, and you have him in that many leagues. But
I got Brees straight up.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding.
Well, don't say you're just kidding. I'm having a life or death battle over here.
We'll think about it. I'll think about it.
Okay.
We're gonna start trading on the pod now
because I got to pay attention to which league that is.
It would be squad, I think.
Okay.
He's
no,
I'm teetering.
It would be Nemo.
What?
Nemo.
I'm in pain. Okay, we got it. We got to end this podcast. All right. That's enough for the Fair Enough podcast. I'm gonna go Snapchat Micah. We're gonna have a conversation. We'll give you an update to come. Thanks a lot for listening. Adios.
See you guys.
See ya.